All right, howdy back, folks. Welcome back to Top Comics Pressing. In this video, what we're going to do is just start the spine roll correction here on these two Silver Age comics. We got a nice copy of Fantastic Four number 93 and an Avengers 31. The copy of Fantastic Four number 93 does have kind of our classic teardrop roll here on the spine, and you can definitely see that. Importantly, the staple here and the staple there are both parallel, and on that black line separating the color from the white, which indicates that it should probably be on the side of the comic. It does have a very large amount of the inner wraps here exposed on the back. And we can see a good amount of creasing down the spine here, especially through the blue and the Fantastic Four logo. And so this book has all the hallmarks of a spine roll, and so we should be able to correct that one. The Avengers number 31, if I hold it flat out, clearly has been, I think, pressed without fixing the spine roll. So if I look here, I have a staple, again, that is parallel on that black line. Here, the staple is parallel on the black line. You'll notice that the border up top here is slightly wider than the border down here, and so typically that indicates some kind of miswrap. But if I squeeze this tight and we look at the pages on the top, and if we flip it on over and look at the corner right here, we can see that this book is actually just crooked as it is. So I think this had a spine roll, and I think somebody had pressed it without appropriately fixing the spine roll. And so now it has this kind of goofy splayed pattern that you can see here. And so both of these books are going to need to get flattened out and then kind of folded back over. And so we'll just start here with the Avengers. As I normally do with these, what I'm going to do is open it on up to the centerfold, and going to start from the inside out to try to do the flattening process. I think it works better that way. And then trying to go from the outside in, partially because I believe the inner wraps are just a little bit more susceptible, that kind of pulp paper, to being reset. And so I'm just going to kind of go ahead and kind of put that there. I'm going to, again, use the non-stick Up and Up Target brand. I don't think it really matters what kind of brand paper it is. I just happen to live close to a Target, so I use the Target brand parchment paper. Importantly, you want the parchment paper. Do not buy wax paper. Wax paper is wax, and it will melt into your comic books. So I'm going to use a cotton around here with that, and here I have my little jug of water. So it's just DI water, and I'm just going to wet this, put this over the comic book, and just kind of paint on a nice line. And again, I don't want it to be dripping wet here, but I do want to transfer a good amount of moisture to that parchment paper so that I can generate steam and have that steam transfer into the comic book pages, which is ultimately what's going to loosen those fibers and help it flatten out. And much like in our last video here, I'm going to try to be very, very diligent and very careful not to run the iron over the staples. I'm going to try to work around the staples as much as possible. So here's my hanger 9 iron. Again, you don't need a hanger 9. I understand these are hard to get at the moment. What you need is something that's maybe 1.5 to 2 inches of a square that heats up. The little itty bitty clover ones that I see some people try to use is going to be a little bit problematic, only because the surface area is so small. In this case, I have my dial set right at about 2, which is where I usually work for spine roll corrections. If you're dealing with anything that's going to touch gloss, I recommend turning that temperature down so that you don't crack the gloss or cause any problems. And we're just going to gently use the heat from the iron. I'm not using a lot of force here. I'm just using the heat to heat up that paper, convert the water that I added, that little bit of water, into steam, and then we're going to use that steam to kind of iron it out, basically just like you do with laundry. And again, I'm using my finger here to cover up where that staple is. But if you've ever ironed a pair of pants or a nice dress shirt, this is essentially the exact same idea, just doing it on the inside of a comic book. So nothing too crazy here. And much like a shirt, you know, it might take a little bit to get those wrinkles out. And so we're going to do a couple of applications here of the moisture right down the spine. And again, you don't want it dripping wet. You don't want water pooling. Just going to use that cotton round to transfer some moisture. And the good news about the interior as well is it does, I think, it's just more permeable than the, thicker, glossier covers tend to be. There we go. Find the staple there. Not a lot of pressure, just a good amount of time. And really trying hard to be gentle around those staples. If you go over them and kind of rub through them, you can cause some problems there. And we're going to do our best to make sure we don't detach a staple from the centerfold, or worse, from the cover. If you look at the CGC grading scale, you know, having one staple detached on a centerfold is not a big deal. Actually, a detached centerfold altogether is a pretty big grade hit, but it's nowhere near as bad as a detached cover. One staple from the cover is a pretty big hit, but that second staple where you have a fully detached cover really kills the grade. So try to be absolutely as careful as possible. And this one wasn't anywhere near as bad as the Flash Annual I posted a while ago. So these, I think, are gonna polish up quite nice. By the way, that was too much moisture. The sheet under here is my SRP paper. I just have that down there to make sure I'm not scratching the back of the comic book on this MDF board I use. I use the MDF just because it's pretty heat resistant. So if I just put the iron right on the MDF, it's not a big deal. Whereas some of the other material, like I don't know what the desk is made out of. Alright, that should be pretty good there. We flattened it out for the most part. You can see that there's still a little bit around the staple, but it should be pretty flat. And we're going to do one from the outside. Now, caution on the outside, it's a lot easier to pop that staple if you put too much pressure down from the outside. At least that's been my experience. And so again, I'm just going to paint this, and because I'm on the gloss here, I'm going to turn my dial down to about 1.5-ish, just to minimize any chance of lifting color off the cover. I don't want to crack the gloss. Really don't want to leave any signs that I'm doing anything here at all. All right, when you turn down that dial, it's not going to immediately cool down, so I'm just going to dab it right there. You can see all the steam I've blasted out. Turns out it takes a lot of energy to convert water to steam. It has a very high enthalpy of vaporization. Been a while since I double checked the math, but I think if you take ice and melt it and heat it all the way up to its boiling point, that takes less energy than actually boiling it into steam. All right, looks pretty flat. Just gonna take that one and slide it on off my board here. And see, nice and pancaked. And then we will take second copy here and start the whole process on over here with our Fantastic Four number 93. And this one, I think we're going to have to be very careful with the bottom centerfold staple because it already has quite a bit of wear through there. So this one we're going to have to be extra diligent with. Top staple is more secure, but not fully secure, so a little bit of nail biting perhaps on this one. Go ahead and turn my iron back up to a 2. So check that as much as possible. Add some more water here to the cotton round. Given those staples, I'm just going to try to give them a little bit more clearance in there than I might normally. It took me the longest time to figure out that Don Heck, the Avengers artist, is also one of the really famous Golden Age horror artists. I know I should have put that together sooner in my career as a collector, but sometimes I'm just slow. I don't know why I assumed that a lot of the early Avengers was Kirby work. Of course, that's incorrect. That was just my naivety as a young collector. I think it was partially just because I was so attached to Avengers 4. I just really love that cover. That one's just epic. Big Avengers 4 fan. I think I have a 6.0 copy. It's a very, very attractive looking 6. But 6 was kind of at the top of my price point, so I overreached for that one at the time. Very happy I did. It's one of my top 5 Marvel covers of all time. One of my favorite Spider-Man covers of all time is Amazing Spider-Man number 39. Not just because it's an epic start to Romita's career, but I just really like it. Also kind of reminds me of the Tobey Maguire movie of Spider-Man, which is kind of the era of Marvel movies I grew up with. Plus I just really love the purples and the pinks on that. It pops like crazy. I gave my copy some blue LED love, and it really just looked incredible afterwards. Alright, now this one I could probably keep ironing, but given the staples, I'm gonna call it good. Out as gently as possible. Oop, forgot to turn on my iron. Flatten that out. I was like just sucking out that residual heat by putting the iron on the cotton around there. Just helps lower the temperature from the set point. Don't need to worry about it when going from low to high, but when from going from high to low, that iron's still going to be above the set point when you turn the dial down. At least a little bit. All right. See how we did there. Now this one, given that centerfold issue, what I'm going to do is take my backer board and try to gently slide it in there. And we got 2 of them. Just gonna try to very gently line that up. Yep, now that I have those fixed, you can see that the staples are not quite lined up on the edges there. Just move that just a touch. before I iron it, I want to just make sure right up here it's pretty squared away. And down here, same thing, just make sure it's gently squared away. I'm gonna, at all costs here, try to move the paper and not the staples on the sides. Cool. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. Much better, at least. Definitely avoid the staples here and just try to form a little bit more of a crease. And this is something you want to watch out for. If you look, my paper is folded over there, and you don't want to iron over that because you'll leave a ridge in the comic book. And this one, I'm going to pull one of the backer boards out here. Go. I'm going to take some new SRP paper and I'm going to re-wet my cotton round. Go, got that re-wetted. Some new paper going here. And between the staples, what I'm going to try to do here is kind of put the back of the iron here on the board and kind of have it up on an angle and just try to wiggle it. I'm going to put a little bit more force on this part to try to remake a crease right in the middle of the space. But I've got my fingers where the staples are, because you do not want to roll over them if you can avoid it at all. So you want to stress the paper, not the paper around the staples. The middle of the paper will be fine. Staples, on the other hand. All right, you can see we did end up with a good amount of wear on that paper on the outside, so that's okay. Now we're going to do kind of above the staple. And this is where if you have your iron too hot, you're going to be really disappointed because you're going to end up cracking that gloss or taking color off with you. So I definitely took a quick glance. Down at the staple, and that is way too much moisture there that came off. Let's dab that up. Dab that up. Get that staple over as much as possible. There we go. It's pretty well lined up. Just checking it top down there. All right, we're going to do the same thing here on the back now and just try to re-iron the whole spine. You don't need to overdo the fold here because it's ultimately going to fold in the press. So I think that should be good. See how we did there. Pull a little bit tighter when we actually do the press. But that looks like a pretty normal Silver Age kind of threshold. Importantly, if you look at where the cover is, you know, it might be a little bit off there front to back. So maybe we could try to pull a little bit more over. I think that's within tolerance there of a normal Silver Age book. So again, if you go back through kind of my comics of all ages, Silver Age books were very rarely lined up perfectly. And I think based on where those staples look right now, it's about time to stop. At least on that issue. All right, we'll go back here to our Avengers issue. Same thing here, we're gonna go ahead and put our backer board in the middle. Slide it on over so I can get under the book without trying to pull up all the pages. Go there. Okay. Oh, that looks a lot better. Pretty good right there. So fold it on over for myself. Being right-handed, I prefer to iron on the side. Get my fingers on the staples. Time to iron. If you don't feel like you're getting a good enough crease, you can always do this without the backer board in the middle. I find that to be a little bit more difficult. I like the support in the comic. Yeah, I like having the buffer there. Yep. See how we did? So again, that's quite close. Quite close over there, so that looks pretty good. And then time to do the back cover here. A little more wrinkle there than I might have wanted. To keep an eye on it. All right. think that'll do. So both of these comics now are going to go into the press. I'll cut back here with a video when they're out of the press, but I've already did one on the Flash comic showing how I kind of set that up. So both these are Silver Age books, so they're all going to have a magazine backer board at centerfold to support the staples. I'm going to put one sheet of 65-pound cardstock under the back cover and under the front cover, sandwich that between SRP paper, sandwich that between backer board, sandwich that between my aluminum plates. I'm going to cook this bird at 155 for 15 minutes after giving it a little bit of healthy hydration. So that's it for this one. Thank you for your attention.